get a test and self-isolate. We're now processing 1.2 million tests per week. To date, we've carried out 15.4 million antigen tests. That's more than any other country in Europe and more per head than other European countries like Germany and Spain.
Yes, people, how we doing? Red Pill Phil here.
Red pill Phil. 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 Red pill Phil.
Glad to see you all. Thank you for jumping on and taking the time out. This is a link that was sent to me by one of Manchester's finest. The man known only as Nicky, Pocket, the Rocket, Lockett. So with that, I'm going to bring him in. So Nicky, how are we doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm good, Phil. How are you, brother?
Mate,
Do you know what I mean?
Getting on with it. It feels like the walls are closing in terms of curtailments and freedoms, without a doubt, to a level that I don't think many people have ever seen, particularly in the Western world. And it's our reality now, isn't it, mate?
Well, the powers that shouldn't be are really trying their best. I think they've all got, it's a mixture of their own little personal, reasons and beliefs why they've got why we're in this situation on all sides of the argument. And then you've got, a lot of people that I think are just so invested in this, they bought into it, the COVID bill, the furlough, the loans, and now they just can't face reality. They're refusing to sort of say, well, I got it wrong. I've really fucked up. I need to go back and sort this out. So we're sort of stuck in that situation, I think, where both sides, left and right, are snatching whatever they can. And the people, good people that believed it are now are just too embarrassed to say anything. It's sad. I'm gutted.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, mate. There does seem to be a bit of a power grab going back to politicians saying never let a good crisis go to waste. Oh. But then when you see the self-sacrifice element of that statement, it's all right gaining political power out of this or monopolizing in one way or another, maybe financially out of this. But ultimately, this is wrecking what we now know as civilization. It's going to rebrand and have to rebrand civilization to something we've never seen before. And the curtailments that are going to come with that, are we truly prepared for it, Nicky? Yeah. This is a leaked document that the British Medical Journal have ended up expressing and talking about it. And it talks about a plan to do mass testing to the levels that no one has ever seen, and we've never had any kind of pandemic that will justify that. And to go further, you could actually argue what is going on now. Does it justify, one, spending the money, and two, having a mass rollout of this screening program, knowing the consequences of it when we break it down?
It's sort of scary because we've lived with pandemics, what you just said there, in this pandemic, but we've had bigger killers than this. More people have died of the flu. So basically, by their standards, we've been living in a non-stop pandemic since recorded history, because there's always been the flu and there's always been a cold. And this is number 22 on a big list of killers. And it's going, it's going further down the list as days go by the day. We've been living in a pandemic. It's not even a pandemic. It's been called a pandemic, but nobody's revised it. Nobody's challenged it. So things like this thing that I sent you, it's scary to the point of this is what they're planning to do, and the policies that these people, the British Medical Journal or whatever they are, these are the things that eventually turn into policy. Do you know what I mean? So all sides of the argument, for whatever nefarious reasons, because none of them can be good at this moment in time, because it's a jokes pandemic. You know what I mean? So to me, it's just scary how they're planning on doing this anyway, regardless.
If this would have happened at the beginning, when the initial fear hit everyone, there was not a lot of understanding of what was going on. I probably would have gone for that. Mass testing and isolate the vulnerable, okay? Now, like you say, for me, I don't know about you, Nicky, a lot of people and myself are thinking, is herd immunity working now? So with the deaths falling on this, but yet the case is rising, but it's still not interpreting into deaths, then there doesn't seem to be a need to implement this on such a level now, because it seems that herd immunity might be sorting this problem out. And going back to what you were saying before, justification of rolling out such an infrastructure, such logistics on this level, these are the top 10 killers that ultimately affect our civilization. You know what I mean? I don't see
we're in a constant pandemic naturally anyway. The viruses attack us, diseases kill us. This is part of life. Do you know what I mean? And for all of a sudden, for everything we know and everything, just to sort of go, okay, well, this is new, so this is how we act now. This is how we act. While things like cancer, heart disease, diabetes, lung cancer, for fuck's sake, all these things, and we're allowed to smoke. It's the actual mind game of it. To me, is the scary part. How there is no opposition anywhere, and if there is, it's just totally, it's shut down. And I'm still having arguments on Facebook with people that go, yeah, but why don't you just wear the mask? It's like, are you insane? And I'm starting to feel sorry for people. So it can only be, people are really, 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 really stupid, or, they're too embarrassed to admit they've got it wrong. And now it's, they've got to justify the furlough. They've got to justify the loan. Now they've got to jump through the hoops that they had to agree to before they got the funding. And this is what's happening with schools, and this is what's happening with the NHS, and this is what's happening with businesses. With the spoons today, apparently, get a pass. So Andrew Lloyd Webber gets a pass because now you can put on pantomimes because everybody's facing one way. This is the shit they're making up as they go along. Because at some point, they've got to start sorting the people out that have funded them to get into power. So Boris is in the middle of now giving everybody the golden handshake that are his pals, like the boss of Witherspoon. Apparently
Nicky, you bring up a top point. No, you're right. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, he's immune to.
No, I know, but what the wider point that you're bringing up here is relevant within this document, okay? In terms of the contracts, what we need to do with this is, instead of thinking low key, in my opinion, like most of us do, we tend to react with what's right in front of us, i.e., if the snake has been thrown in your tent while you've been camping in the middle of the night, you tend to react because the snake is there, instead of reacting to the person that may have threw the snake in the first place. You know what I mean? And I feel that's what we do, and it kind of hinders our progress on anything. So with this, we've got a lot of contracts, we've got a lot of conglomerate companies that are monopolizing on the contracts of this. To me, they're becoming more of a target every day. These are part of the globalist preferred infrastructures that are being funded and financed. Let me just run through a little bit of this article, and then we'll run to Boris, how he feels about this when he put the rollout of it. Operation Moonshot is the name of the UK government's newly proposed COVID-19 mass testing scheme. The plan revealed by the British Medical Journal involves an expansion of testing from the current hundred of thousands of tests each day to 10 million a day by early 2021. But how does the government propose to do this? Firstly, let's break that down, mate. They can't even handle what is going on now. What makes them think by throwing all this money into this scheme that they could possibly get near them figures anyway? And that's without actually thinking, is this a viable thing to do? Knowing the probability of getting it and the money it's going to cost as well, Nicky.
Yeah, I think it's getting to the point where, you know, the cost has already been, you know, agreed on. There's a lot of reasons for that, because the Tories want to blame the economy tanking on COVID. That's a big reason for them. Do you know what I mean? It's not so much as all this cost, it's all these policies that are going to be put into place, because they could get to 2021 and go, you know what, that was a bad idea. But the laws and the policies, and therefore the interpretation of the law, which is what these professors and these medical board and these, you know, these sort of think tanks that the government seems to, you know, go on, you know what I mean? These are the people that predicted, the same people usually, and in this case, are the same people that actually predicted the millions and millions of death, and people's skin was going to fall off and everybody was going to die and become zombies, and, you know, dogs could get it and kids could get it, you know. Yeah. And this is, to me, this is what they want, you know what I mean? And they'll say they're going to spend any amount of money to do it, or they will spend any amount of money to do it, just because it's the end game. It's the civil liberties. Do you know what I mean? It's the electronic money being, you know, we're not allowed, you know, I see traders like me and you know, painter and decorator, DJ, you're not going to be able to work unless it's for money. You can't do work on the side. Cash will not be allowed to change hands.
The other element of this as well is that the consequences of this, even if they manage to be able to do this, it's going to cost a load of money. You know, they can't organise a piss up in a brewery, so you know it's going to go woefully wrong. But the consequences of it, look at this. What they're talking about is a mass rollout where everyone is going to have to be tested on a very regular basis. Then what they're going to try and do is isolate the people that are vulnerable as to the people that are not infected, and keep the people that are not infected in a kind of enclosed area, if that means anything, like a domed mindset area where you know that this area is clean. Hence, you can live your life in that area. You now will be able to go to events. You'll be able to live and freely function around. If anyone, like you said before, if you can't test the competency of these tests and what they're actually going to pick up, digital passports are things that they're talking about that's going to run alongside this. So when it comes to actually doing anything, living real life, if you've been given a test and somehow it's been given a COVID positive, whether you've got the COVID that could actually spread it or whatever the scenario, your life will then be dramatically affected by that. Your life will be cut off. You'll be affected by your work, because your work will have to run with this policy of only having people that have been regularly tested and presumed safe. You'll be able to go out to areas because the only place that you can or will be allowed is the areas that have been tested and the people within it have kind of negative. Do you understand what I mean? So there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be suddenly isolated from society.
A lot of working class people, because you know who are going to be more vulnerable to this, you know, this part, because the testing is so outrageous. It's untrue. I can't be asked going into it. It's going to be working class and poor people. That's who's going to be, that is who has been affected on both ends, whether it's been the virus itself or whether it's been the economic, you know, terrorism that's been laid upon them. You know, it's the working class and it's the poor. That's who's going to be affected. The idea of a digital passport is something they've wanted for years, man. They've wanted for years, both sides, left and right, have wanted this for years. Some sort of identification. You know, do you want to divide up the country again into, you know, places where, you know, you can go? These policies that they're talking about in this journal, to me, remind me of a lot of it, how it was about immigration. You know, digital passport, areas, split up the country.
Remember when we was growing up, Nicky, with the ID cards? Remember when they really pushed for the ID card and it never worked out? A part of that, if you then become negative, you're then in the club. If you're in the club, then you can actually have freedom of movement. And look at this for an headline, mate. Look at that. Digital health passports roll out for air travellers tracking COVID status, vaccination proof. This is what I mean.
Immunity is not going to mean anything because the same people are going to be putting us the tests. And they're just going to pick, at the moment, they can pick and choose which part of the country, just because the tests are so unreliable. It's, you know, half and half. It's a joke. And it's picking up particles of a virus. So, you know, having COVID and it not affecting your life or anybody else's life doesn't seem to matter anymore.
With the way it's rolling out at the moment, how can we get a situation where the deaths are going down, but all of a sudden the deaths are going to shoot exponentially again? I can't see that.
It's not a prediction. I'm just saying that, that guy that can just stick to Valance and whatever his name, Whitty or whatever his name is. Them two guys there, man. Oh, it's not a prediction. He just made it up because there's something else going on that the COVID is a cover for. And it's economics, it's policy, and it's control. And it's all these things that they're going to have to, that we've wanted forever, that seem to be raising their ugly head. And they're using, now they've got, they're not going to use racism as an excuse. They're not going to use, you know, misogyny, or they're going to use viruses. You know, that's what they're going to use. They're going to use COVID, and they're going to push everybody about, getting people so confused. They're going on, and they're going to pass laws, and they're going to make policies that pass laws without anybody knowing.
People have got to see it. People have got to wake up to what is actually happening. This is tyrannical, no matter what. However you felt tyranny may come, it's come in the form that it has. But you can see that it's justifiable for them to do this under the fear that is being projected because of this. I mean, look at this, Nicky. Common Pass, which at present offers travellers the possibility of carrying digital proof of a recent negative COVID-19 test, aims to include proof of vaccination when this becomes available, allowing passengers to cross borders and board commercial flights by letting a QR code to be scanned on their personal mobile phone. This makes me think the invention of the mobile phone has so encaged humanity now.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you know, it's one of them, you know, it's whatever tool they've got. If it wasn't mobile phones, it'd be something else. Trump has just come, he's 78 years old. Apparently he got it. Now he's fine. And he's telling everybody he's fine. And they're all calling him a liar. And it's not in the papers. The president of the United States, 78 years old, just got COVID, and within 3 days he was fine.
Nicky,
now
on an experimental drug. On an experimental
I don't even think he's had any drugs. I don't think he's had any drugs.
No, listen. No, he did. No, wait, I've seen him. He actually spoke about the drug. He spoke about an experimental drug that he tried, and he also said, Nicky, that experimental Nicky. He also said the experimental drug that he tried, he's now going to try and roll it out free for everyone. Yeah. Now, when you listen to that comment, that tells me that he's shoving the fingers up at the status quo and the narrative that is having to live under this fear of this and getting injected.
He's saying that Trump is the only fucking person saying it. It's mad to me. The president of the United fucking States, right? If that was Barack Obama, everybody would be like, we're back to work.
Trump ticks all the boxes. He's a guy. He was a male, over 70 plus. He's in the vulnerable stage.
Yeah, man, he should be dead.
Vulnerable category. So when he gets it, and then he comes and tells you that he's kicked its ass essentially, and he's done it with a drug that doesn't mean that you have to go under a vaccination program. And not only that, the tyrannical stuff that may come with the vaccination program, you know what I mean? The implementations going back to the passports and everything else. If you've had a vaccination, you can live. If you've not, you can't. If this is a quick in and out process like Trump is saying, and it's happened, what I don't get on this earth, mate, the twilight zone that makes people think that I'm not going to believe him. I'm going to say he's a liar, and I'm going to think he's actually going against the system at this moment in time.
It's the same people that call him a white supremacist, for fuck's sake. Yeah, so evidence seems to be a thing that doesn't actually exist anymore, because the more evidence you have, the more you're told you're wrong. It's insane to me. You know what I mean? Yeah. At the moment, we're ignoring, not we are, but willfully, the press, the government, the party, politicians, they're just repeating the same thing over and over again. The evidence seems to just get left out, right? Are we sure that the country feels this way? Because it can't be that way. It can't be that the whole country, right? The majority of people in this country agree with this shit. They're still talking about track and fucking trace, man, which is a joke.
Let's hear it from the man himself, the man who is going to roll out £100 billion operation called Operation Moonshot.
Boris Johnson has announced Operation Moonshot, a plan which could see the entire UK population tested for coronavirus in just 1 week.
In the near future, we want to start using testing to identify people who are negative, who don't have coronavirus, who are not infectious, so we can allow them to behave in a more normal way, in the knowledge that they can't infect anyone else with the virus. And we think, we hope, we believe that new types of tests, which are simple, quick, and scalable, will become available. And they use swabs or saliva and can turn around results in 90 or even 20 minutes.
The ambitious programme would see 10 million daily coronavirus tests on the public. If you test negative for the virus, this would give you a freedom pass for 24 hours to get back to normal life. For example, being able to go to the theatre, football, or a friend's house. The operation could cost up to £100 billion and requires testing technology currently not available. The eye-watering cost has been criticised as being too expensive, with the operation costing around 3/4 of the entire NHS annual budget. Experts have also warned that the plan is risky due to false positives given in some tests where people with the virus appear to be healthy. Currently, between 150,000 and 200,000 tests are processed each day. This includes antibody tests to see if you had the virus and swab tests to see if you currently have the virus. The government has admitted processing swabs in labs has caused a bottleneck to form, meaning tests are taking longer to process. However, the Prime Minister said Operation Moonshot would use new technology which could see tests give a result within 20 minutes, as opposed to the current testing time of around 24 to 48 hours. The plan is aimed at being in place for next spring in order to avoid a second national lockdown. The government has come under fire recently due to testing delays and lack of testing centres, which has meant that some people have been told to drive over 100 miles away to get a test.
They can't even handle what's currently going on and the way they're dealing with this. They've already outlined there that they can't even verify that ultimately you're guaranteed that you are infected with COVID as well. So then when you become under that umbrella and you get a calculation, you get a test that is what they call a false positive, the life of you, your family, everyone around you, the gates are closed straight away. So if that is off a false positive, what confidence have you got in this running forward? In order to combat this, the way we probably both share the opinion that herd immunity is working, Wouldn't they be better investing money into building people's antibodies up and immune system?
Yeah, it would be, but that's not going to get them what they want. That's the problem. People have to, other than people like me and you, Phil, normal people that have relationships with their MPs and whatnot. It's time for them to start fucking writing letters, because we're the working class. We get nothing. We get, unless we go on a march, and then we get beat up by the police because we're right wing. Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't matter. Yes, it would be, and everybody knows.
But Nicky, there's going to come a time when all that right wing, all that, being vilified because you're working class, that isn't going to mean nothing, because these plans are going to be rolled out indiscriminately until every person, man, woman, and child, has been tested. And the amount of false positives that could be gained on the left, the right, black, white, young, old, it doesn't matter. What will happen once that happens to any individual will mean through your phone, through the track and trace, it will affect everyone in your direct periphery, bubble, whatever you want to call it. And that goes through all paradigms. So I hear what you're saying, and I totally agree. The danger is, if these guys if they still got an element of cognitive dissidence here, then what they've got to realize is it's coming to them, whether they realize it or not.
What you've got to remember is, right, the people that are doing this shit know that the most people that are going to get fucking COVID, if they're going to get it at all, is going to be the working class, and it's going to be the poor, because it's all down to nutrition, diet, and health, right? That's what it's down to, okay? And it's down to people, living in close quarters, just like any other virus. So they've already thought about what people are going to target. Don't tell, they might say,
kind of roll out. I know, but you don't want to imply with this that they're going to basically demonize the working class, because this is
that's where they're going to test. That's where they're going to test. That's where they're going to test.
You'll have middle class people that will go to get tested, and all of a sudden they've hit a positive, and before you know it, their family has now got to self-isolate or whatever. And like you say, there will be winners and losers with all this. Ultimately, the fittest will survive with any kind of incident that happens of this magnitude. But on a class level, I think this affects everyone. I don't want to really push it as if to say the lowest nomination is the only one.
Eventually, it'll affect everyone. Yeah, eventually it'll affect everyone. But I mean, the people at the target now for the result that they want, because this is the thing, that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They want this outcome because this is, like I said before, it's the same policies, just with a different delivery system.
Right, well, let's get on to this then, Nicky, because this is a top point. With all of this, there's got to be an infrastructure. There's got to be logistics. And to do it on the level that they're doing, you can imagine, these companies, these organizations involved that are massive. What we're realizing is the fight is not ultimately, same again, it's not about fighting the snake that's been thrown in your tent. It's about finding the person that's thrown that snake in. Yeah. Now, with this, for me, the big contracts goes back to that. Can I just read you this, Nicky? The documents talk about buying large-scale capabilities from partners such as drug company GSK to build a large-scale testing organization. However, under potential partners for increasing laboratory capacity, the documents list only the company AstraZeneca under logistics and warehousing. The documents list potential partners as Boots, Sainsbury's, DHL, Kung Nago, I'm probably butchering that name, G4S, and Serco. The worrying thing about this, mate, is that the same players are popping up, building this, what I would class as an infrastructure for the globalist. One that I'm going to pull out of all this is Serco. If people remember, Nigel Farage reported on the goings-on that was going on in Dover in terms of immigrants being brought in casually on dinghies and then going into a series of hotels and other establishments around the country, and particularly at a time like this when no one can understand. Nigel also reported on the fact that £3 billion is being, there was a contract of £3 billion given to Serco to make this happen.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, Serco have turned up with this again. Now, this is not immigration. This is actually mass testing of the whole population. Now, it's funny how these big contracts are going to these globalist organizations. Are we to start seeing these big globalist corporations, Nicky, as the real target instead of running down to Dover and making it look like you're intolerant because you're filming people on the back end of what these global conglomerates are doing? Do you understand what I mean when I say that?
Yeah, I do.
Are we got the wrong target?
No, I think, yeah, well, we're always on the wrong target, especially when it comes to immigration. You know what I mean? I mean, stopping a couple of boats, you know, immigration's about more than just, you know, unpaid labor. You know what I mean? Immigration.
Well, it's trafficking, wasn't it? Exactly. What's going on now is human trafficking. And the funny thing is,
which is what it is. Which is exactly what it is. It's human trafficking now.
The Serco are getting £3 billion to play a part in facilitating of the human trafficking. So this is what I'm saying, mate. Who do we go for? We're finding out now.
You go for where the money is. You go for where the money is. And it's funny that you mentioned Serco because they've been involved in a few of these government contracts. Right?
Mate, when you break down the Serco's role, they govern prisons.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing: they work for the government, and it seems they seem to have a reputation of getting things pretty fucking bad and getting things wrong. And I wouldn't be surprised if they were just another hole that the government would try to throw money into because they want to, you know, balance the economic books.
When you break down Serco, I was sent a video earlier today, mate, and this guy breaks down Serco and its roles. Do you know that Serco employ more people than the British Army?
That's amazing. No, I didn't.
The surveillance state that they own and use globally.
And this is a private company, right? Apparently, this is a private fucking company, which they're not.
I think for you to get a bigger background on the people that are really creating the problem here, rather than us reacting to a problem that's put in front of us, we're better off seeing the actual demon, seeing the octopus that is working against us here. There's 100 billion that's being invested in Operation Moonshot. There's estimates to suggest that that's 3/4 of the NHS budget. Now, if you look at what the NHS does provide, even though there's failings on that, it still helps people to a degree. Spending 3/4 of a budget that helps people for something that's going to do what? Enslave people? Where's the logic in that, Nicky?
There is no logic. That's the point. It is only the end game. And this is what normal people, everyday working class people, middle class people, you know, people that are well off, they have to understand. People have got to start waking up to there is no fucking logic to it. There is an end game. There is an ends that justifies the means. So people make crazy decisions when they live on that rule. You know, the ends justifies the means. You know, that's what they used. That was the excuse for the genocide in Rwanda. You know, the ends justify the means. So this is what people have to start waking up to understand, that it's not a puzzle. There's no way we're going to figure it out if we're looking for a reason. The only reason is that this is what they've always wanted. And on both sides of the aisle, they get what they want.
Nicky, as we can see, it's an incremental step. It's one of many that has been going since I've been waking up for the past 20 to 25 years. And it's got to a point now where I'm pretty much convinced that what you're talking about, there's so much truth in it that it would seem illogical and irrational, and probably for me not to have an element of truth in what you're talking about. That is the redundant part. That is the part that where I should wear a tinfoil hat for not having the open-mindedness to think that this is a reality, because there's too many incremental steps that are slotting into place. It
makes no sense.
Perfectly working, you know?
It makes no sense. The idea that they're attacking, you know, they're crashing the economy. The idea that they're, marginalizing old people. The fact that they're using children as a weapon. The fact that they're, all these things don't make fucking sense, because the reason isn't a good enough reason, because there's no evidence, and we can all see that this is not a disease that we should be doing this for. So it can only be, so it can only be the end. And what happens is when herd immunity doesn't matter, because the testing is going to be so fucking outrageously detailed, and to the point where it's going to be picking something that is benign, and that'll be enough.
Nicky, this government can't run a piss up in a brewery. We know that. Previous governments are the same. When you've got this amount of power, this amount of money, you're about to drop a bollock somewhere. A bollock on this level is going to change the global landscape. With what Boris was talking about there, he was talking about new technologies. He currently can't handle the old technologies. They currently can't verify and justify every case wholeheartedly. Yeah, they know that they're going to get some wrong. They know that implementing new technologies that they don't even know yet. He's actually admitted there's technologies out there that they're still going to use that they don't even know. We know when you roll out any new technology, mate, what's the first thing you get? You get glitches, don't you, Nicky? So glitches of this magnitude are going to give so many false positives, which are going to consequently affect people's lives.
They can say whatever they want, can't they? At this moment, false positives don't even though they're a factor, it doesn't seem to be a problem for anybody. Because they're too busy, like Labour, they're too busy with, fucking guess that these things are not even questioned. Do you know what I mean? So the end game to me, as it's become, this is what they're doing, because everything they're doing, even with the evidence of Trump, even with the evidence that, nobody's dying of this shit and it's 22nd on the list. And my son was sent home from school last week because some girl was track and traced, blah, blah, came to class. You sent the fucking kids home. It's a joke. Now, I know what that means. If I was working, I would have to isolate.
That's what I'm saying, mate. That's what I'm saying. These are the false positive scenarios.
So I phoned up the school and I spoke to her, and I had an argument with the teacher because I was telling her, listen, this is wrong. You know this is wrong. At least tell me that sending kids home now that might be infected are just going to put loads of other families at risk, either because of work and having to self-isolate. And she went, no, we have to follow the guidelines. It was like talking to a zombie. And this is a teacher's.
My daughter got sent home because one of her bubble apparently has tested positive. Same again, you can't verify that, but we're going to have to go with it. My child said, I've not even seen this person. But yet, because they're in the bubble, she's had to go home. She's had to self-isolate. So that's affected her life. It's affected our life on something that's not even affected my own daughter, mate. And that is the illogical part of this. Now, same again, on that false positive theory, my daughter can't live a life. My daughter would have...
illogical.
You know what I mean?
If you take away the fact that it's only illogical if you think there isn't a reason and they're making mistakes, then it's illogical. But there is a reason.
There'll be a lot of people that won't want to believe it. They won't want to believe the end game. And that'll be the cognitive dissonance that they'll be fighting within themselves. So they'd rather demonize you for thinking that rather than accept the probability that you might have a point. Like you said before in one of the comments on a previous stream, some people can't critically think, so they won't accept your argument because they can't do that. They'd rather demonize you, call you, slander you, get your job lost, get you banned, just to keep their kind of mindset. And that's the dangerous bit when, 5 years down the line, if the projections are right where you're going, Nicky, they're going to be there and they're going to see it. They're going to taste it and they're going to think, shit, why didn't I listen to Nicky at the time?
Yeah.
Nicky, let's just, it is so, innit? You know what I'm saying? Let's just get back to this, mate, because we kind of veered off a little bit. This is a guy, I don't know where he is, I don't know who he is, but he breaks down the different organizations, and Serco, he does a real number on him. I can't play it all because it's quite a lengthy video, but just enough so you can get a sense of where it's coming from.
Someone is working in the lab. However, the infrastructure of our entire test and trace system, the enforcement, is run by a company called Serco. Has anybody heard of Serco?
Yeah.
The Serpent Company. Right, now before I tell you about Serco, this is how it works. The law changed 2 weeks ago. If you are asked to isolate for any reason, you do not need a test, you do not need symptoms. You can get a little notification on your phone saying stay at home, and you can get £1,000 fine, and if you break the rules you get up to a £10,000 fine. This is administered by Serco, okay? Who are Serco? Here we go. Right. Serco are the multinational company that employ more people than British Armed Services, 125,000 people. They've got 40 subsidiary companies across the globe. They are the largest outsourcing company in the world, and they win 70% of the contracts they bid for. They turn over £5 billion a year. Here's a short look into what they do. They cover waste disposal all over the UK, transport, half of London's traffic lights, all of Dublin's. Ontario, Canada, they issue your driving licence. In New Zealand, trains, ferries, all across the UK too. In Australia, they have a presence on every single military base. That's just in Australia. Serco are contracted to run the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. Does anybody know what FEMA is? They administer and run 2 whole FEMA camps worth $600 million. 17 states they run FEMA, sorry. Immigration detention centres across the UK, Australia and New Zealand. Air traffic control across the whole world. Public transport in the West and in the Middle East is dominated by Serco. That means the ANPR cameras. That means the facial recognition cameras. They run, own and maintain all of that infrastructure.
Right, mate. The guy goes on. I've got to upload this separately on its own because the guy is so succinct and he's got so much info. It's too long to play it all in this. But just from that, mate, can you see the grip that Serco's got?
I mean, the name is new to me, but I've always, since this thing started and before, I understand about private companies that are really just other arms of government. Do you know what I mean? And how, we are manipulated by, this sort of central banking system. Because I bet you any money, dollars to donuts, that they're going to have big ties to the central banking system and the central bank itself. You know what I mean? And that'll be the people that, probably put up the fucking ticket for them to get started.
These are the preferred globalist enablers, aren't they, Serco? Yeah. Partly because probably the globalists themselves. We've got to really do a 1 + 1 makes 2 assumption here, haven't we? If our government are throwing money at them hand over fist on multiple contracts for multiple things, that was just a brief breakdown of the control they've got, the air traffic control, the penal system, API, the camera system, obviously now with the immigration and now with the mass testing system that's going on. If they're getting so much money on different levels, it makes you think that, our government is just as much globalist as the preferred globalist enablers. They can't be that stupid, mate, because any government would think, well, why are we monopolizing?
There's no opposition.
Why are we funding these guys? Because these guys are getting that powerful, they could actually ruin us. So what do you make of that?
Because there's no opposition. Do you know what I mean? The government, this is a front government. This is the other arm of the government. This is, you know, and there's no opposition. So people like Serco can be just employed blatantly. If everybody's on the right train, nobody's going to raise a fucking flag, and they get the contract. We need a third party. We need somebody else to vote for. And at the moment, we've not got it because Labour have just opened up their fucking anus, man. And the Tories are ploughing whatever the fuck they want inside there. And to me, that is
it's a duopoly, Nicky. And you know what? It's like a little tango dance that these two do, because given the reverse role, if Labour were in power, the Tories would be doing the same dance with them. I'm almost certain that that's what would be happening. What you're talking about is a true representation of the working class, or the body of people that make the centrist in this land. That's what we're not getting. And that really could be and should be the direct opposition to what is currently
going on. Where's Antifa? Yeah, where is Antifa? If this is why I know Black Lives Matter, Antifa, they're all full of fucking shit. Where are they? Because this is fascism. Where are they? Where is the protest? Can't lock us down. This is by decree. That is fascism. Where are they? You know what? Where they are? They're waiting on fucking he who shall not be named orders, because they're all fucking in on it.
So ultimately,
it's the first time I've ever wanted to leave the UK in my life. I've never wanted to leave Britain ever, but I'm really, really considering going. Just
there's very few places you can go to now that's not going to be under the grip of this, Nicky.
A little island in Portugal or something. Some one of them little weird islands that nobody fucking just off the coast. Something like that. I'll buy a hut on the beach and I'll fucking raise chickens because you know, to me,
I'll bring me decks, mate. I'll bring me decks. Yeah. Fucking right. I'll be down a dinghy.
Get a generator going. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, let's get this happen, make it happen. Before you know it, we'll have our own little common sense island, mate. And I think a lot of people mentally are there because they know that this is not right. They know they're not born out of hatred. You're not born out of outrage with individuals. You're born out of what you can sense is not right with the way the direction of life is going. And that is common sense, and that is the most rational thing you can do as an adult, Nicky.
Yeah. Worry about what's going on around you. I mean, I was blacklisted a long time. You know, if there's one thing I would have been able to, I'd take away that if I would have carried on the same way with my career, I would be riding alongside these people, going, yeah, man, everybody masked up, because that's what they're all doing, because they're either too dumb or brainwashed to know the difference, or they just that self-obsessed. They don't give a fuck. Nobody believes in God. Nobody believes in the afterlife. Nobody believes in anything anymore. Do you know what I mean? That sort of attitude, and that's what scares me. You know what I mean? It's
well, it does. I mean, that's the thing. Even if you've got a house, semi-detached, whatever, 2 cars on the drive, 3 holidays a year, it's still affecting you. How's it not affecting you? You know what I mean? And that's the redundant part of this argument. There's going to be no one who escapes this draconian measure once it comes in.
Eventually, everybody,
just like there's going to be no one escapes when CCTV got rolled out. You know what I mean? Everyone now is being filmed, whether you like it or not. You know, and it's the crazy consequences of the incremental steps. To put bookends on this, mate, because we want to keep it down to a minimum, to keep it a nice, concise. The positive for me is ultimately self-empowerment, and also realizing that on a conscious level, we can beat this. It's a light and dark. We can see the energy that is thrusting this is dark energy. Self-empowerment and knowledge will get you to a position where we can all come together, transcend all the hatred, the bigotry, and see that ultimately it's the people on top of that hill that are affecting us all, Nicky. And I think, once we get to that, I do believe we can then get a body of people together to actually overcome this. That's my positive. What's yours, Nicky?
I don't know. I don't know if there's a positive that we can get out of this situation, because, I was having the other day with somebody on Facebook, a well-known pop star from back in the day, but still pretty relevant, and I was talking about, how disgusting it was. Labour MP shadow backbencher woman was using kids as an excuse to get funding. And this guy, I was so shocked when he went, yeah, well, you're a Tory, to me. And I just went off on him. I just went off on him and said, listen, man, whatever you call me, I wear like a badge of honor because you are obviously a fucking idiot. Do you know what I mean? And to me, I'm not. It's not a positive thing I can hope for. The only thing I can hope for is that the middle class and people like him actually start recognizing, because they're the ones that drink in the same establishments as their local MP. Do you know what I mean? And they're the ones that are going to be able to reach out and touch somebody. You know what I mean? Whereas we're isolated.
Do you not think that's happening now, though, Nicky? I know you've had that response off that Muppet, and fair play.
Yeah.
A lot of people will be getting the same thing, whether it be online or in person. But do you not think that awakening, that quakening now is happening?
Yeah, I think it might be just starting, but it's like, we're a month behind, and we need somebody to kick it off.
We're probably 40 years behind, Nicky. When you look at Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, the rollouts that have been conceived.
This COVID bill, we need to get rid of this COVID bill. The positive is there is a petition. I think it got the right amount of. I'll have to check, but I'm sure it got it because I posted it and it was already halfway there, and that was 2 weeks ago. So if it isn't, we have to get rid of this COVID bill. We have to get rid of the COVID Act because it is giving all the tools and all the excuses they need to do dumb shit that are gonna, make our lives worse and their lives even more elite, because the politicians are becoming the fucking new oligarchy. It's scary. I mean, that people like Keir Starmer I looked at like some sort of, good politician. He's a fucking scumbag.
Well, going back to what we were saying, let's talk about the two leaders. We had Trump and Boris, Prime Minister, that at the time of Brexit were almost seen as twins in terms of their thoughts and working against the system. Now, when it comes to COVID, I think Trump has been consistent in putting his fingers up to the elite to some degree. Whereas Boris, I feel he's almost got in bed with them at this point by rolling out what he's rolling out.
There's some sort of thing that they're, I think the only, if I was Sherlock Holmes, I'd put it down to the idea that there's got to be a payoff for it. And I think hiding the economy, the crashing economy, the global economy that was going to crash, now they've got an excuse and they've got the reason, because nobody wanted to borrow any more money. Everybody was talking about bringing the national debt down. That's what it was all about, right? And without borrowing money, the economy was going to collapse, even though people were doing great, saving, buying houses. People were getting off the poverty was down, and they needed an excuse because the economy was going to collapse. And they need an excuse to borrow more because of the central bank. And
so what you're saying is basically financial revolutionaries that are literally being very cavalier with our economics in order to obliterate it and probably rebuild it in the form that's suitable for them.
Exactly. And it was going to collapse anyway. But, what would have happened was people would have been really pissed off, because if there's one thing that brings us all together, black, white, pink, green, whatever the fuck, whatever, do you know what I mean? One thing that brings us together, it's, having our money stolen. So, if the economy would have collapsed and it would have been the fault of the bankers and the government, that would have been a problem for them. So now they have jumped on this COVID thing because they can borrow the money they need to get them out of the hole which keeps the central bank happy, which keeps the Rothschilds happy, which keeps fucking everybody happy. Do you know what I mean? And they can and they can blame it on COVID.
Without a doubt. Right, Nicky, we're going to leave it there because we're running a wee bit long, but I could go on all night about this because it's a great story. And obviously, mate, it doesn't have to. Thanks a lot for your time, anyway. You know what I mean? Thank you very much.
You know me. No problem. When it comes to shit like this, hopefully we can, say something and might trigger something in somebody. And
this is it. This is the positive that I'm talking about, mate. That programs like this, just waking people up, giving people elements of being open-minded or giving them allowances for critically thinking. Stay blessed, mate. Stay cognitive. And
remember, it's one thing, let's not try to forget that. Why is it happening? Let's start looking at what's happened and where we're going, because the why is they've always wanted it.
Mate, you're a star. Keep up the good work, Nicky, and no doubt we'll be in touch very soon, mate. Yeah?
Yeah, man. Peace. Peace
nice
and love.
See you later. Whoa, I tell you. What a guy, what a guy. He's got logic, he's got rationale, he's got passion. My God, they don't call him Nicky Lockett, the pocket rocket Lockett for nothing. That man is oozing with passion, outrage and frustration. But you know what? Don't matter what your demographic, don't matter what your political persuasion, don't matter what your class system is at this point. We've got something in common with where he's coming from. Whether we totally agree or not, there's a shared truth in there that a lot of people are denying at this moment, and they shouldn't do because it's detrimental, and it'll even be more detrimental as life proceeds. So with that, guys, thank you very much for jumping on. Thanks to Nicky. And there's only one more thing to say. I love you all.
I love you all. I love you all. I love you all. I love you all. I love you all. I love you all. Even the pissing haters. I love you all. 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 I love you all.